Welcome to the Secrets of Personal Injury Law with Colin Bober.
Hello and welcome to the Secrets of Personal Injury Law with Jason Long, Senior Attorney at Colin B. Bober and Associates. I am your host, Kevin Rosenquist, and today's episode is the digital footprint, the hidden risk in your personal injury case. Jason, welcome back.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for being here.
We're talking about the digital footprint, which of course is social media. And it's changed the world, as we well know. We're not going to go into a philosophical debate here, but can you tell us how the rise of social media has changed the way personal injury cases are handled?
Well, you want to be very careful with what you put on the internet, especially when you're involved in a legal matter or a legal claim like, personal injury in a car accident. Because if you're claiming injuries and you're making a claim for that, and then the next day you're off at Six Flags, having a blast, taking photos and running around, that potentially could be dug up and used against you to undercut your claim for injuries. So you just want to be very careful with the kinds of things you put on the internet because you never know when it could come up to bite you.
That's just good advice in general.
Yeah.
In general, for everybody, for everyday
Right.
use. Can you explain in a little more detail of how the social media posts from a client or the opposing party can affect the outcome of a case? Do you have some examples?
Well, it can have an impact. It just kind of depends on what it is. If let's say you're claiming injuries, then it would be advisable for you just to not go on there and talk about it, or go on there and take photos of you having a ball out in public, or running around or doing athletic things when you're claiming that you have neck and back pain and you're sore and it's hard for you to stand all day at work, or sleep at night or lay down. That's number one, sort of the physical aspect of it. But number two is you also want to go on there and badmouth any insurance company, the other driver, start posting things about the accident or criticizing anything that was involved, going and criticizing perhaps the other driver or criticizing an insurance company. You just never know what could come back to bite you like that. And frankly, I've said it before, the best thing to do is just don't go on there. As you go through the claims process and also in litigation, there's going to have confidentiality clauses. So if you've resolved the claim or litigated and resolved the claim, there may be confidentiality clauses littered all throughout the paperwork that you're signing for a resolution of your claim, not to go on social media blasting an insurance company, another driver, or anything. Yeah. It just depends on the language in there. So you want to be very careful about that as well. Duty to read, just to make sure you're not in any sort of hot water that could come back and bite you, just depending upon the terms that, who knows what they have it in there. But easiest thing to do is just stay off of it entirely. Just resist that urge for just a little while.
Yeah, some people can't not put their entire life on social media. We've all had friends or acquaintances that do that, family members that do that, where you're just like, why are you telling me everything that's going on in your life?
Right.
And even though this is a significant moment in their life, they have to be smart about that. Do you tend to coach your clients on social media? Do you have to talk to them about this now?
Sometimes it can only control so much that you can control, right? I mean, you can give clients advice. I can give you tons of examples of clients that we give advice to and say, hey, this is our best recommendation for you. And we walk them through the steps and the options, and they do the exact opposite. And then they end up in a situation where they didn't want to end up in the first place. So you could counsel clients about social media as well, and just being very mindful of that, but you can only control what you can control. So it just depends on the person, whether or not they're going to listen. A lot of them do, but some of them still can't help it.
It's true. It's definitely a thing. So, obviously if it's out on social media, it's, I don't know if it's the right word, but admissible, right? It's something that people can use, the insurance companies can use, defense attorneys can, or the defense attorneys can use. So anybody can, if it's out there in the world, it's basically fair game, right?
Right. And I think part of the misconception that people will have is they'll go on these social media sites thinking, well, this is my private page. This is my private information. No, it's not. You don't own that website. That's not yours. I mean, they give you, let's say, a space to put pictures and comments and, talk about what you'd like, but I don't think you really own that website. So it's not really truly private. So you're putting out your information in public, and yes, it might be behind a private lock or a password or something of the, that's not readily accessible by the general public unless you're a friend or, whatever they have per the website. But if you don't want other people seeing what's out there, then you should also be very mindful of that, that it is potentially accessible. Also, that information can be retrieved or could be retrieved in a claim. I mean, it may not be accessible by, let's say, a pre-litigation adjuster because they don't have access to your private page or they're not your friend on the social media site. But that, let's say your claim goes into litigation, defense counsel can certainly ask about any social media posts or anything related to the accident. Doesn't mean they're going to get it, but it also depends on whether or not it's even relevant in the first place. When defense counsel may ask for social media posts, they don't exactly know whether or not something exists. And then, of course, they want to see it and see if there's any relevance to it to discount the claim or use it against you or undercut the arguments and claims that you're trying to make. So again, it all tailors back, or it should all tie back into the original point. If you don't want it out there, don't put it out there. So you can only control so much.
Can past posts affect a case that can come back to haunt somebody?
It could, depending upon, let's say, your past medical history. So if you are claiming, back pains from a new accident that just occurred this month, but you have a history of other auto accidents, or maybe you have some workers' comp claims, and your posts are walking around, you're still going to Six Flags again, having a blast, even though, you're claiming so many, aches and pains from back pains or neck pains from this, whiplash or whatever you're going through at this point in time. Sure, that could come back and bite you. Insurance companies are also going to background check you. They're also going to see if you've made a lot of claims in the past. I've had adjusters hit me with it towards the end of a claim where they'll say, all right, well, yes, you're presenting a damage claim in your demand, but we also have a history of workers' comp claims that over the last 5 years or 6 years, or he or she's been in other accidents, and they've made 3 or 4 other claims, and they've come up in their systems as somebody that's made numerous claims, that they're trying to undercut this new demand and new claim for either an exaggeration of injuries or new injuries whatsoever. And so insurance companies are doing their homework to try and root out those that are making frequent claims, or those that, also file a lot of workers' comp claims. So your information is not as private as you may think.
That is true. That we know for sure. Yeah. What about like text messages and stuff like that? Is that something that, do you just kind of recommend people like just not talk about it in any digital form?
Yes, that's the simplest way to put it. Just be very careful. Text messages can cut both ways, though. You can use them positively sometimes. If the client was in the accident and the at-fault party was texting them and saying, it was my fault in the accident, I'm sorry, I'm offering to try and settle and pay. Please don't call my insurance. Please don't call the cops, because they either have tickets or they don't want it on their insurance. And the client saved those text messages. They can be beneficial as well. So it's not all bad, but you just want to be very mindful of what your digital footprint or otherwise is going to be doing out there.
Have you had a case at all yet where social media made or broke the case? Like something that happened that someone showed on social media made or broke the case?
I can't think of anything in recent memory. I can recall something recently where, to go along with the text messages, those can help in liability decisions. Those can be included with the facts of loss where the adjuster is still making a decision. It's not overly determinative. They're still going to review the actual facts of loss and talk with their own insured. So it's Those things can help, but they're not sort of the silver bullet that you may think that is just going to turn it in your favor or in your client's favor. To use a famous phrase, it just depends.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too, because like, I mean, I have Instagram and I'm private, quote unquote, and that people can't, people have to request to follow me or whatnot. So yeah, I probably would have thought that not that I'm a poster, I'm not a big poster, but if I did post something about an accident, I wouldn't think anybody could get to it that I wouldn't want getting to it. Is there a process? Do they have to be subpoenaed? Is it that, like, how does it work if they're not publicly available, at least publicly available in the sense that it's not behind a friend request?
Yeah, they could try. I mean, it depends on the relevance of those posts. So usually regular pre-litigation adjusters are not going to be dumpster diving for all that information, nor are they really going to have the authority to do it by themselves. That would be something that would be more relevant in the litigation phase, where they could request a subpoena, or they may need a court order to request that additional information that is, as you're saying, private. But it also depends on the relevancy. So you also run into the situation if they're really trying to uncover that information. Well, it's kind of hard when they may not understand the full relevance of it. So they may not even go that far in the first place. Especially if it's not relevant, then I don't see them really wasting time and money trying to uncover something like that just really won't have a net benefit.
How do they find out? I mean, if somebody is behind the friend requesting, how do they find out? Is it through other people, or how do they find out that someone was at Six Flags if that's not something that they can easily see? As in, like, if you have a thing like, oh, you can't look at my stuff unless you're friend. If I approve your friend request, can they still somehow get to that information? Have you seen it where, whether it's a friend they don't realize is giving information or something like that? Like, how can that come about?
You could. I mean, is the companion in the vehicle not under private as well? Did they, the police report have another another passenger that was in your vehicle that you may be friends with on social media? I mean, you could be friends with them and you were driving in the same car, and they just go and find the companion or other companions in the vehicle that you may be friends with, and their stuff may not be on private. And then all of a sudden they say, oh, well, now you're tagged in photos or comments or something like that, and you're off having a blast, and you didn't realize that their stuff is not under private control, even though yours is, and that can't control everything, and sometimes it can leak out and slip out that way.
Are there times where someone might be like, hey, I was in an accident, don't worry, I'm okay, everybody, and then later they're trying to make a personal injury claim, and then the lawyers or the insurance company's like, wait, you said you were fine in social media. Is that another way that people have gotten kind of in trouble? Have you seen that?
The insurance company is still going to say, they're going to say what they're going to say. We all know that they, I know that in a previous episode you kind of talked on those things, but they're going to try and justify any way that they can to diminish a claim or not pay a claim. And so, sure, I mean, if you're not represented and that individual is trying to resolve their own claim one-on-one with an adjuster, and the adjuster may feed them a whole cock and bull story and say, well, you said you were fine, and, we're going to just, take that, but here's some fast cash anyway, to save us some money and get you out the door. That is certainly an avenue that, it's not going to prevent them from trying it, but it's not a be all end all. I said I was fine, therefore I don't have a claim anymore. It's not that simple.
Okay.
Remember, in our previous example or previous episode, if you will, you're in the middle of an accident and you've got a lot of adrenaline, you've got a lot of things going through, a lot of confusion. Aches and pains and injuries don't readily appear instantaneously all the time. Right? It may take 24, 48 hours. You may wake up the next morning stiff and sore. You may start to feel early onset of some things, but then it starts to kick in, a day or two later. And so, when did you say I was okay from the accident? Can also be something to take into consideration.
Yeah, for sure. Well, bottom line, just don't put anything up on social media that has anything to do with a case.
Right. Exactly.
All right.
And that way you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. Then you just don't have to worry. That seems to be the way to go. All right. Well, thank you for tuning into the Secrets of Personal Injury Law with Jason Long. To connect with Jason and the team, visit boberlawfirm.com, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Jason, great having you here. Thanks so much for all the insight.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.